It wasn't even a real wish, just a sigh I forgot to swallow. The library lights buzzed like they were tired of pretending to be warm. It was the kind of night where even silence had edges. I was shelving books I didn't care about, putting back stories I didn't believe in, when I said it, quietly, like it didn't matter. I don't want to be alone anymore. Not to anyone. Not even to myself, really. Just out loud. Because the quiet had started to feel louder than I could stand. I didn't expect an answer. And definitely not him. Something in the air bent, not broke, just bent, like the rules had shifted slightly sideways. The scent hit first, smoke, winter, and something older than dust. And then he was there, standing in the aisle where no one had been a second ago. Dark coat, bare hands, eyes that didn't blink often enough. Not beautiful, not human, just still, like he was waiting for something, or maybe he'd already heard it. I didn't move, not because I was brave, I wasn't, but because I'd already felt everything, and there was nothing left to panic with. He tilted his head, looking at me the way people look at forgotten things. Not cruel, just curious, detached. Then he spoke. One word, low, precise. You summoned me. My throat closed, not out of fear exactly, more like shame. Like I'd been caught saying something I didn't mean out loud. I didn't, I whispered. His gaze didn't waver. You did. I looked down at my hands, at the spine of the book I hadn't shelved. It trembled slightly. I didn't mean to. He stepped forward once, not threatening, just closer. Like gravity worked differently around him. Intentions are irrelevant. Desire calls louder than words. I didn't know what that meant. Or maybe I did, but didn't want to. What do you want from me? I asked. He didn't smile, just blinked slowly, like the question itself was tiring. I'm here to give, he said. Not take, unless you offer. A beat of silence, then another, and then the question slipped out. The one I shouldn't have asked, too tired to stop it. Who are you? His answer wasn't loud, but it settled in my chest like ice. Azrael. The name echoed, not in the room, but inside me. I didn't know what I'd called, and now I just knew nothing would be the same after this. I didn't ask him to sit, but he did, right there in the reading chair across from me. The one I always avoided because it creaked like it remembered things. His presence didn't feel warm or cold, just wrong, too still. Like everything else in the room was holding its breath. I held mine too. He didn't look at the books or the desk or the sad little plant I'd forgotten to water 3 weeks ago. Just me. I don't understand. I said finally, I know. Not I'll explain. Not let me help. Just I know. Like confusion was part of the ritual. I crossed my arms without thinking, a little armor, a little stay back. He didn't flinch. You said I summoned you, I said. You did. I waited. Nothing more. He let the silence stretch, like he wanted me to earn the next piece of the puzzle. By saying I didn't want to be alone, I asked, that's all it takes? He tilted his head like he was deciding how human I really was. No one says that out loud unless they mean it. Then, after a pause, wanting something with your whole self has power, more than most understand. I blinked. That wasn't. I didn't finish because I wasn't sure what it wasn't. A wish? A confession? A mistake? He leaned forward, resting his forearms on his knees. His hands were long, elegant, wrong, too still. There is a contract, he said, calm, like he'd spoken this line 1,000 times before. I didn't speak, just waited, like if I breathed too loud, he might vanish. 1 year, he said, you give me your love. I laughed. Not really, just that sharp, broken kind that slips out when something hits too close. Sorry, I said, though I wasn't. I'm fresh out. He didn't react, not even a blink. You give me what love you have, broken, feral, guarded. It doesn't matter what shape it takes, only that it's real. That hit something low in my stomach. Dangerous. I looked away, staring at a crack in the library floor tiles. I'd stepped over it for years. Never noticed it until now. And in return? I asked. He stood quiet like his body made no sound at all. He didn't come closer, but it still felt like he did. I give you what you want most. My throat tightened. He didn't say wish, didn't say dream, just what you want most. Not money? I tried. No. Not safety? No. He stepped around the reading chair, not toward me, just pacing now. A slow, patient circle, like a lion who'd already eaten but might still take a bite. It is deeper than that, he said. Older, hungrier. My heart kicked once. Then again, what if I don't know what I want? He stopped walking. You do. I hated how sure he sounded, Like he'd already seen inside me, like the part of me I'd tried to bury still glowed bright enough to be noticed by monsters. I rubbed my arms. They were cold. Or maybe my skin was just tired of being touched by air. "I'm not agreeing," I said. "Not yet." He stepped back, giving me space, which felt more like control than kindness. "There are rules," he said. "Once it begins, you cannot back out. A year is a year." "And then?" I asked. "Then you go back to your life. Or what remains of it." That should have scared me more. Instead, I just nodded once. He took a small black card from his coat pocket and placed it on the table between us. No words, no ink, just blank. But somehow, I knew it wasn't. "I'll return tomorrow night," he said. "Why not now?" He paused at the door. "Because decisions made too quickly aren't real. You need time to know what you're choosing." "And what am I choosing?" He met my eyes, for the first time fully. "You're choosing to give your love," he said, "and find out what you wanted badly enough to summon me." Then he was gone. No flash, no fire, just nothing. I sat there a long time, listening to the clock tick, watching the shadows move. I didn't touch the card. Didn't throw it away either. I didn't sleep. I just lay there staring at the ceiling like it might crack open and swallow me if I blinked. The card stayed on the table. I left it there. Didn't touch it. Didn't throw it away. Just kept pretending it wasn't real. The thing is, I've heard beautiful words before. I've had people say forever like it was a warm coat they'd hand me on a cold night, only to yank it back when the wind changed. So no, I didn't trust him. Not with his perfect posture, impossible eyes, and a voice that slid through the air like it didn't belong to this world. But I believed him. And that's worse, somehow. The library was quiet in the mornings. It always was. That's the only reason I stayed. The silence didn't judge me. Didn't ask why I still flinched when someone said, "I miss you," or "It wasn't supposed to go that way." I shelved books like I was building walls, one story on top of another, until they stopped reaching me. It worked, mostly, until last night, until him. There's something cruel about wanting, about needing something badly enough that it carves a shape inside you. Because once it has a shape, you can feel the absence of it more clearly. That's what he saw, I think, the hollow part. He didn't even have to dig. It was just sitting there, open, exposed. I don't even know when I got this empty. It happened in pieces. A fight I didn't start but still lost. A conversation where I said I'm fine too many times and meant it less each time. A hand that let go of mine too easily. A goodbye without a period. You don't notice at first. You just tell yourself, this is what happens. People outgrow love. People get bored. People make promises when they're lonely and take them back when they're not. Eventually, you stop blaming them and you start blaming yourself. I used to be soft, I think. I used to cry at movies, give second chances like candy, believe someone's silence meant they were hurting, not that they didn't care. I used to make excuses for people who forgot my birthday. I don't do that anymore. Now I keep things small, contained, want less, expect nothing, stay busy. That's how you survive. You shrink your hope until it can't be taken from you. But, God, some nights I wanted to be wrong about everything. He said I summoned him with a wish, but it wasn't a wish. It was a weakness. A slip, a moment where the loneliness got louder than the logic. Just one breath too honest. And now he's here. And now there's a choice. I'm not scared of demons. I'm scared of what it means that I'd trade love like it's a currency. That I'd give away the most broken, bruised part of me just to feel like I mattered for 5 minutes. What kind of person does that? What does that say about me? I went back to the card this afternoon, still blank, still waiting. I sat down across from it and just stared. Maybe I wanted it to disappear. Maybe I wanted it to do something, move, burn, speak. But it didn't. It just stayed, like me, waiting. I keep thinking about what he said. You give me what love you have, broken, feral, guarded. It doesn't matter what shape it comes in. It only matters that it's real. He didn't flinch when I laughed at him, didn't react when I said I had nothing left. Why would a demon be so patient? What does he get out of this? He didn't say, and I didn't ask, because asking would mean considering it, and I wasn't ready to do that. Not yet. The sun went down again. I didn't turn the lights on. I just sat in the dark, listening to the creak of the building settling around me. The loneliness didn't feel sharp tonight. It felt dull, heavy, like wet wool. And I kept thinking, if I gave him 1 year of love, would it be enough? Do I even have a year's worth left in me? Or has it all already been spent on people who never wanted to keep it? He doesn't blink. That's the first thing I noticed when he reappeared the next night. Same chair, same posture, same impossible stillness. Like time didn't apply to him. He just sat across from me like it was normal. Like we did this every Tuesday night at 8. I didn't say anything. Neither did he. Eventually, I looked up and asked, "Do you ever get bored?" His eyes didn't even twitch, just stayed on me like I was the one being studied. "Not in the way you mean," he said. I didn't ask what he did mean. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. I tried to keep my voice dry, neutral. "So what do you do when you're not tormenting emotionally bankrupt women in libraries?" A tiny crease formed between his brows. Was that confusion? He tilted his head. "I exist. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." That was the thing about him. He didn't lie, he didn't charm, or flatter, or try. He just was, like stone, or storms, or gravity. Whatever he came from, it wasn't built on kindness or cruelty. It was older than that, older than wanting. When I asked what he was thinking, he said, "I don't think the way you do." I believed him. His world didn't have soft things. No daydreams, no sentiment, no almosts. Just contracts. Power. Rules carved in languages no one remembered. He looked like a man, but he didn't move like one. Didn't hesitate, didn't fidget, didn't breathe, unless he remembered to. That made me curious, against my better judgment, the way curiosity feels when you lean too far over a balcony. I told myself it didn't mean anything, just observation, just keeping him at a distance I could control. But watching him made the silence feel less sharp. He'd study things in my space, not touch them. Just look. The crooked lamp, the chipped cup on the windowsill, the dried flower I kept in a book, pressed like memory. He never asked about them, but I could tell he was trying to understand what they meant, like he knew they had weight. He just didn't know why. I think love is like that for him, something he's seen the shape of, but never held. He can name it, offer it, bind it to paper, but he doesn't feel it, not the way I've felt it, raw, shaky, terrifying, and yet he didn't scoff at it either, didn't dismiss it like most people do once it stops benefiting them. He spoke of love like it was currency, sacred, dangerous, strange. I asked him why the contract was about love, not lust, not obedience, not blood. He turned his head slightly, like he was listening to a sound only he could hear. Because love is the one thing you won't fake forever. That answer sat heavy in the room, like dust that wouldn't settle. The part that scared me most, he looked at me like I might be capable of it, even when I wasn't sure I was. I don't know what love would look like to something like him. Probably not soft or warm or quiet. Maybe it's survival, or sacrifice, or silence kept without demand. Maybe it's just staying after everything. I don't think he's ever had that, and I don't know why the thought of that made my chest ache a little, but it did. After a long pause, I said, "You're not what I expected." He met my gaze, unblinking. "Neither are you." And somehow, that felt like a truce, the smallest one. But it held. "I'll do it," I said. Not because I believed it would work, not because I wanted to be in love, just because it was easier than sitting alone with the ache. He didn't smile, he didn't nod, just held my eyes like he'd been expecting this, like the words were a formality, like the choice had already been made the moment I summoned him, or maybe the moment I stopped believing anyone else would ever show up. "Are you sure?" he asked. I hated how steady his voice was. No threat, no seduction, just calm. That made it worse. It meant he knew the answer before I did. I sat on the edge of the couch, legs tucked up. Not cozy, contained, controlled. He stayed where he always sat, near the bookcase, always on the floor like furniture didn't mean much to him, still barefoot, still impossibly still. "Does it have to be love?" I asked finally. He didn't look confused this time. He didn't look anything. "That's what you asked for." I didn't say the word. I said, "No," he agreed, "but you meant it." That irritated me, not because he was wrong, but because he was right without knowing me. Or maybe he did. Maybe whatever he was could see straight through people, through the parts we pretend not to feel. Loneliness, longing, want. I said nothing for a while. The air between us was thin, not hostile, just brittle, like the space between two people in a hallway who don't know whether to pass or speak. Eventually I muttered, "I think love is stupid." "I know," he said, and that should have been the end of it. But I kept going. I think it's unreliable. People say it and take it back, or weaponize it, or use it as an excuse to ruin things. He didn't argue. He didn't defend it, just waited, so I added, quieter, I don't know if I can give it. Azrael's gaze didn't waver. Then give what you can. That surprised me. And maybe, stupidly, that was what made me agree. Not the promise, not the contract, just that he didn't expect perfection, that he didn't flinch when I said I was broken. He reached for something then, a small black notebook closed with a red thread. The cover was soft, not leather, but something older, like parchment that had never dried. The kind of thing that should have crumbled in your hands but didn't. He held it out. I took it, barely. Our fingers brushed. His skin was cool, not cold. He didn't pull back. Sign your name, he said. So I did. Not because I trusted him, but because I didn't trust anyone else. There was no blood, no light, no burning mark on my wrist, just ink, my name. The book closed with a soft snap, and then it was over. Silence stretched. I didn't feel different. He didn't suddenly look softer. I didn't feel closer to anything resembling belief, but something shifted. Not in the room, in me. Like I'd stepped off the edge of something. Quietly, without a sound. I don't know what this is supposed to look like, I said. He stood, that same graceful, unnatural movement, like his body remembered physics differently. We're not supposed to know, he said. That's the point. I watched him cross the room, slow, unthreatening, but not human. He didn't ask to stay. He didn't look back. Just moved toward the old armchair in the corner and sat, like he was settling in, like this was home. I thought I'd feel more trapped, but instead it just felt strange, quiet, not comfortable, not yet, but not alone, not anymore. I didn't think anything would feel different, and I was mostly right. The world didn't shift, the sky didn't open, the pen clicked closed, the contract disappeared, and then we were just two people in a room again. Well, one person, one whatever he was. We didn't talk about rules or expectations, no moving in ceremony, no speech about what came next. He just stayed, started sleeping in the armchair, not like he needed to, but like he wanted somewhere to be. I think it used to creak under its own weight, but with him, it didn't make a sound. I slept with the door cracked open, not because I trusted him, just because I didn't want to hear the house breathe through the walls. Mornings were the worst. There's something about silence in daylight that makes it feel heavier, colder, like it's your fault. I'd make tea, drink it too quickly, burn the roof of my mouth, sit at the table and pretend I was reading. He'd pass by sometimes, not loudly, just enough. Bare feet, no footsteps. Neither of us said anything. I started counting how many times he walked through the kitchen without looking at me. I don't know why. Maybe just to prove to myself he wasn't watching me. Maybe because a small part of me hoped he was. Once, I caught him reading one of my books. Not the ones I kept on the shelves. The one I left face down on the couch, spine cracked, page dog-eared. Something stupid and sweet, a slow burn with a happy ending I didn't believe in. He didn't look up when I saw him. Didn't say anything when I sat on the opposite end of the couch, not touching. The book stayed open between us. Neither of us touched it. The house used to feel small. Now it felt like it had too much air, too much space. Like every corner had been emptied of sound and feeling, like everything held its breath around us. I tried humming once, just to break the quiet. It felt wrong in my throat, like I was interrupting something sacred. Or worse, something that didn't care either way. I kept waiting for him to try, to seduce me, to charm me, to fake something close to love. That's what I thought he'd do. What demons do, right? But he didn't. He didn't touch me, didn't ask questions, didn't call me beautiful in the dark. He just sat, read, slept, walked, watched maybe, maybe not. Hard to tell with eyes like that. One night, I stood in the hallway with my hand against the wall, feeling how cold it was. He passed behind me and I said, "Do you feel anything?" The silence afterward was so long, I almost laughed. Then, quietly, from behind, "I don't know yet." That was the first thing he'd said in days. I didn't turn around, just nodded once, even though he couldn't see it. Or maybe he could. Demons and their rules. I went back to bed. Didn't sleep, not because I was afraid, because it suddenly mattered that he didn't feel anything, and I wasn't sure why. The next morning, the kettle was already on. Steam rising, soft, like the house exhaled for once. He didn't say anything, just nodded at the table, a sec cup beside mine. I sat, didn't drink it, but left it there, because maybe that was the first gesture. Or maybe it was nothing. Either way, it stayed warm for longer than it should have. He didn't speak, but then again, neither did I. We existed in the same rooms like shadows passing along the same wall, not touching, not even brushing. I'd stop jumping when I felt him nearby. Mostly. It was the silence that made it worse. Or maybe easier. I haven't decided. The house was too big for two people pretending not to see each other. Too quiet. So I left a book open, by the window. Just left it there. I didn't plan it. Didn't think it meant anything. Not at first. But the next morning, it was still open. Still untouched. He didn't sit in the chair beside it. Didn't even glance, I think. But I knew he'd passed it. He moved without sound, but the air shifted when he was near, like the house held its breath. The next day, I did it again. Different book, different page, a different kind of quiet. I didn't tell myself why I was doing it. I just did. It was a story about a girl with frost on her hands. She touched everything like it might break. I knew that feeling. I left it near the stairs this time, where he always paused. He didn't touch it. But the page had turned. Just one. I don't know if it was the wind or him, but the corner was bent like a finger had held it there. By the fourth book, I stopped pretending it didn't matter. I picked stories carefully, ones with longing, ones with monsters who weren't really monsters, ones where someone stayed. I never left a note, just the book, waiting. Once, I saw him glance at one. Just once, no words, no reaction, but it was enough. I felt seen, not fully, just a flicker. It hurt more than I expected. Hope always does. He still didn't speak, still kept to the corners. But one night, I came into the room and the book I'd left was closed. Not tossed aside, not returned, just closed gently. I didn't know what it meant. Maybe nothing. But my fingers hovered above the spine, and I didn't reopen it. The next morning, I left another. I don't know what this is. Not connection, not yet, but something shifted, quietly. Maybe that's all it is. A book left open, a page turned, a silence that feels less sharp than before. Maybe that's how it starts. Not with a kiss, not with a promise, just a story, and someone who notices. I started to feel him more than I saw him. At first, it was just that sense, like the air thickened when he was near, like silence holding its breath. Sometimes I'd look up and he'd already be gone, or maybe he'd never really been there. But the books I left open didn't stay untouched. Some mornings, the page had turned. Some nights, the light I'd left on was switched off. And once, just once, I thought I saw a faint fingerprint pressed into the edge of the paper. Not mine. He didn't ask questions, didn't speak, but I felt him watching. Not in the way people watch, not curious or cruel, just witnessing, like I was a puzzle he wasn't sure he wanted to solve. I made tea for me, but I set out 2 mugs. I didn't know why. Maybe I just hated the sound of pouring water for one. He never touched his, didn't even glance. But he sat in the far chair, the one in the corner across from me. Not close, not far. I dropped a book once, didn't mean to. It hit the floor harder than I expected. Pages bent, spine cracked. I flinched. I always flinch at that sound, but I didn't kneel to fix it. I just stared, felt stupid, small. He picked it up, didn't look at me, just lifted it gently, ran a thumb across the creased page, then set it back on the table. Closed. No words, no questions, just that. He doesn't blink. I don't think he breathes the way we do, but something shifted in his expression when I laughed at the radio. One of those old romantic songs that's more ridiculous than sweet. The kind that's so sincere, it's embarrassing. I snorted, then covered my mouth, forgot he was there. When I looked over, he wasn't smiling, but he tilted his head like he was trying to remember something, or feel it. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to ruin it. Later, I found the same song playing. Not loud, not on repeat, just once, just enough to be heard from the hallway. He wasn't in the room. He watches. He learns. But not like a person, not yet. More like a mirror trying to figure out how to reflect what it doesn't understand. I wonder if I scare him or confuse him, maybe both. Last night I cried. Quiet. No sobs. Just the kind where your chest hurts and the pillow goes damp and cold. I don't know if he heard or if he felt it. Demons don't do empathy, or at least that's what he said. But this morning the blanket was tucked tighter around me. Not warm. Not loving. Just not how I left it. And the mug on the table wasn't mine. Steam rising. Barely, but rising. He's watching. But now I think he's listening too, even if he doesn't know what to do with what he hears. He sat in the armchair again, same spot, always that one. I pretended not to look, but I noticed how still he was, too still, like he didn't want to move wrong, didn't want to break the quiet. I made tea, again, same kind, honey, no lemon, 2 mugs, again. I didn't look when I set his down, just placed it on the low table between us, not on his side, not on mine, just there. He didn't touch it, but when I got up to leave the room, his eyes followed, not his head, just his eyes. I felt it, that weight, like he was memorizing my shape in the doorway. Later, I folded the blanket from the back of the couch, soft, slightly frayed, the green one with the little threadbare corner. I draped it over the armrest near him, not too close, but closer than before. He didn't react, didn't even glance. The next morning, the blanket was folded again. Different this time. Not the way I fold it, tighter, neater, almost careful. I don't know why I did what I did next. Maybe it was the way his fingers moved, how gently he turned pages as if paper might bruise. So I brushed my hand across his shoulder. Just once, passing by. Not a caress. Not really. Just a human thing. Contact. His body tensed. Not like fear, more like something uncertain sparking beneath his skin. He didn't look at me, but he didn't pull away either. That night, I couldn't sleep. Too many what-ifs. What if I'd crossed some line I didn't understand? What if this wasn't kindness to him, but some kind of threat? What if I wanted something from him without meaning to? The next evening, the mug was already out when I walked in. Empty. Waiting, but out. His side of the table. I filled it without a word and set it down where I always did. He didn't drink, but he stayed. When I sat down on the couch beside him, closer this time, he didn't move. I didn't either. Not for a long time. The blanket lay between us, touching neither of us. But there. And for a moment, that was enough. That was everything. The chair creaked only slightly as he shifted, not away, just shifted. I didn't look, but I felt it, that small gravity between us, too quiet to name, too loud to ignore. I turned a page too fast and toward the corner. It made me flinch. He looked, not for long. Just long enough that I felt the heat rise in my neck. He doesn't blink like we do, doesn't breathe unless he remembers to. It's unnerving. But sometimes I catch him doing both when he thinks I'm not watching. I moved the tea closer tonight, not because I thought he'd drink it, just because. He glanced at it, not the usual curious tilt, something tighter, like he knew what it meant. I almost said something, but I didn't trust my voice. The house felt full, even when we were in separate rooms, like the silence had thickened. Not tense, not exactly, just waiting. I passed him in the hallway. Close enough our sleeves brushed. He didn't move away. But I did, 2 steps later, like I'd burned myself. There's something awful about wanting. When you're not sure you're allowed to. He stood in the doorway while I shelved books, said nothing. I didn't ask why he was there. Didn't need to. I could feel the question in the air between us. What are we doing? Neither of us asked it. That night I left a note. Not a love note, not anything dramatic, just don't forget the tea. With a little arrow pointing to the kettle. The note was gone by morning. I checked the trash. Don't ask me why. Wasn't there. I don't know what I expected. A comment, a scoff, a gesture. But there was nothing. And somehow that nothing meant more than anything. I caught him staring again later. His mouth just slightly parted. Not with hunger, not with confusion. Just like he might say something. He didn't. He left the blanket folded on my side of the couch. Not across the middle like I'd done. Not touching, but offered. I sat, slow, careful. Neither of us spoke, but I didn't move the blanket. And he didn't look away. I think we both knew something was shifting. But neither of us had the language, not yet. So we sat, in the thick, warm silence, breathing like we meant it, afraid to speak, afraid not to. I didn't drink my tea that night. He did, just once, 1 sip. Then he set the mug down quietly between us, and left it there. It was snowing again. Soft against the windows, quiet, like the house, like him, like me. I was supposed to be reading. The book sat open on my lap. I'd turned the same page 3 times. He sat across the room, close but not close, the kind of distance that still knows you're there. The fire was low. I let it burn down on purpose, too lazy to feed it. Too curious what the chill would do to him. He didn't seem to notice, or maybe he did, and didn't mind. My fingers were cold. I tucked them into my sleeves. He watched that. I know he did. I felt it. But I didn't look up. Not at first. When I finally did, he didn't look away. His eyes are strange, always have been. Not like glass, not like fire, just deep, in a way that feels like falling. He tilted his head just slightly, like he was trying to read me, like maybe he couldn't. That should have made me feel safe. It didn't. It made me feel seen. Then something shifted. Small. The corner of his mouth, it lifted. Almost nothing. But not nothing. It didn't reach his eyes. Not at first. Then it did. And suddenly I forgot how cold my fingers were. I blinked too slowly, didn't mean to. He looked down, like he'd broken a rule, or like he wasn't sure what just happened. Neither was I. But it stayed with me. That almost smile. That second where he didn't look like a demon. Didn't look ancient or terrifying or other. He looked tired and kind. Like maybe he'd never smiled before and didn't know what to do with it. I wanted to say something. Ask if he was okay, or thank him. For what, I don't know. For trying. Maybe. But I didn't. Instead, I reached toward the small table beside me, picked up the same book I'd left open days ago, the one I'd left out for him. I opened it again, turned it toward the firelight, held it there between us. An offer, not a demand. He looked at it, then me, and slowly he reached for it too. Fingertips brushed mine. Neither of us pulled away. For 5 minutes, maybe 10, we read the same page, side by side, silent. Still. Together. When I finally looked up, he was already watching me again. The smile was gone, but not all the way. It had left something behind. Softness. Or maybe just the idea of it. He said one thing, quiet enough I almost missed it. You're not what I expected. I didn't answer. Didn't know how. So I just nodded. Once. Small. Afraid it would break whatever we were in. He didn't move away. Didn't vanish into the walls like before. He stayed. Close. Warmer than the fire. And I let myself lean just slightly toward him, not enough to touch, just enough to feel him there. That was all. But it felt like everything. I stayed up too late again. Not reading. Just not sleeping. The fire had gone cold. The room still smelled like ash. When I came down this morning, he wasn't there. No sign of him. Sometimes he disappears. Not physically, emotionally, like he pulls something back. Himself, maybe. I made tea the same way I always do. Boiled too long. Bitter. Didn't matter. I drank it anyway. There was still a warmth in my chest from last night, from the book, from the way our fingers had almost. No, not almost. They had. Just barely. I shouldn't have let that happen. He probably didn't think anything of it. Just proximity. He was reading. That was all. The smile, that had to have been a trick of the firelight. Or me wanting it too badly. I stared at the same page for 15 minutes. Didn't even pretend to read. I keep forgetting who he is. What he is, that this isn't real, that it can't be. The contract didn't say he'd pretend, didn't say anything about warmth or glances or moments that felt almost like care. It just said love, whatever that means to something ancient, something made of shadows and smoke. I keep looking for meaning in his silences, like maybe they hold something he just can't say. But maybe they're just silence. Maybe he's not hiding. Maybe he just doesn't feel the same way. I left my tea half drunk, put the cup in the sink. It clinked too loudly. I thought about the book, the one we read together. It's still on the table, still open to the same page. I almost closed it. Almost. Like that would undo whatever started last night. Like I could control this if I just acted fast enough. I didn't close it. I couldn't. I walked past his room. The door was closed. It's always closed. But today I paused, just for a second, long enough to hear nothing. Not even breath. I whispered his name once. Quiet. Pointless. No answer. Didn't expect one. All this effort, all these little gestures, and I still don't know if he sees me. Not the version I pretend to be. The real one. The one who doubts everything. Even this. Especially this. What if I'm building something alone? What if he's just playing a role and I'm the only one forgetting the script? I touched the spine of the book. Ran my fingers along the edge like it meant something. Like maybe it did yesterday. But today it just felt like paper. I sat in the chair he always takes, leaned back, tried to feel what he might feel sitting there. Nothing came. Just cold air. Eventually I stood, went upstairs, didn't turn on any lights, didn't want to see myself. The ache came later, quiet, slow, not sharp like grief, just a dull throb, like hope bruising over. I didn't cry. Not really. But I curled up on the side of the bed he never uses and let my hand rest on the blanket where he had sat once, weeks ago. Just sat. Not close, not touching, but I remembered. And for some reason, that made it worse. Maybe tomorrow I'll be braver. But tonight, I just wanted to feel nothing again. Like before him. I left it on the armchair, the one in the sunlit corner of the study he never uses. Worn leather, a bookmark tucked halfway through, the spine softened from years of being loved. The Goblin Market. He'd lingered on the poem once, not out loud, just stayed too long on the page. I noticed. Of course I did. I thought maybe. I don't know what I thought. When I came back that evening, it was where I left it, unmoved. I pretended not to care, picked it up casually, like it meant nothing. The cushion was still indented, but that could have been from me. Days ago. He walked in just as I was sliding it back onto the shelf. "Don't leave things out like that," he said, flat, no eye contact. I blinked. It wasn't cruel, it was worse, indifferent. "I thought you might," I started, stopped. He didn't look at me. "The pages are brittle," he added, like it mattered, like that was the reason. Then he left. No explanation, no glance, just the echo of his footsteps down the hall. The study felt colder after. I didn't light the candle this time, didn't stay. Later, I made tea and didn't bring him any. He never drank it anyway. Too bitter, he'd said once. I left the cup steaming beside my bed, didn't touch it, watched it go cold. There was a moment earlier, before he spoke. He saw the book. I know he saw it, and something flickered in his expression. Not surprise, not gratitude, something like restraint. A wall coming down, then slamming back up. Like I'd opened a door too quickly, like I wasn't supposed to try. I used to think rejection would feel loud. It doesn't. It's silence. It's walking into a room and realizing you're the only one who thought it meant something. It's holding out your hands and watching them stay empty. He didn't mean to hurt me. I keep telling myself that. But he didn't try not to either. I stayed in the library that night. Didn't sleep. Just sat with the shelves. He didn't come looking. Not even once. In the morning, I found the book had been reshelved. Wrong place, wrong section, tucked sideways as if he didn't care where it went, or maybe he did and didn't want to see it again. Either way, I didn't leave anything out for him after that. Not books, not tea, not pieces of myself, not for a while. The room was colder than before, not because the fire had died, Azrael always kept it alive, but because I had stopped trying to warm it. I sat at the table, a book half open in front of me, but I wasn't reading. My hands curled around the spine like I could hold on to something solid, something safe. But the silence between us stretched farther now, thicker. It wasn't just quiet, it was a wall. I remembered the warmth I had tried to share with him. The small gift. The hopeful glance. It had slipped through his fingers like smoke. No words to explain why he turned away. Just that cold stillness that said, "Not now. Not ever." I thought about love. The way it had tangled me before, left me raw and empty. And here I was, offering it again, only to find it shut down, rejected. Not with anger, but with distance. I wanted to reach out. I wanted to break the silence, but I didn't know how. So I pulled back, retreated behind the walls I knew best. They were my refuge, safe, predictable, but also a prison. Azrael watched, but said nothing. His eyes held questions or maybe fears. I couldn't tell. Maybe he was just as lost as I was. The house felt like a trap now, the air thick and heavy. I touched the edge of the book again. Same story, different ending. I swallowed the quiet hurt, didn't cry, didn't shout, just sat, shrinking into myself. Because some walls aren't meant to be broken yet. They're meant to keep us alive. And maybe that was enough. For now. Azrael didn't say much, not like before. Some nights he sat by the fire, staring into the flames like they might explain something he couldn't grasp. His usual calm felt brittle, like a thin layer cracking under unseen pressure. I watched him, but he never looked my way. Not once. It was like I was a ghost in the room, there but not there. The tea I made sat untouched beside him, steam curling and fading, much like my hope. I wanted to ask what was wrong, but the words got stuck. Because what could he say? What could I say? He was a demon, ancient and inscrutable, and suddenly he seemed lost. There was fear in him. I could see it in those moments when his eyes flickered with something new, something raw and unguarded, a flicker of confusion or pain, maybe both. I thought about the contract, the deal we made, a year of love for my deepest desire. But what was love, really, and what was he feeling now? Duty? Curiosity? Or something dangerously close to feeling itself? He never answered, not in words. One night, I tried anyway. I'm here, I said quietly. Not a plea, just a fact. A small lifeline tossed into the silence. He didn't move, just the faintest sigh escaped him. Why are you so quiet? I asked, softer this time. Azrael's gaze finally met mine, sharp, unreadable. I am trying to understand, he said. That was it, no more. No explanation, just that. And in that silence, I felt the space between us grow. Not wider, exactly, but heavier. Like we were both holding something back. Something neither of us knew how to say. So I didn't push. I let the quiet stretch on. Because sometimes, silence is all we have while we figure out what we're really afraid of. He isn't just a demon with a contract anymore. He's someone trying not to break. And maybe, so am I. The room felt colder than before, not the kind of cold you fix with blankets or fire. It was a different kind of emptiness, one that stretched between us, folding the space smaller and smaller. Azrael sat across from me, his eyes never quite meeting mine. He picked at his untouched meal, fingers stiff, almost hesitant. The silence was thick, not peaceful, but heavy and unyielding, like a wall. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words felt brittle, like they'd shatter if I spoke them aloud. He cleared his throat once, then looked away. I don't understand this feeling, he said, voice low and clipped. Loneliness. It is strange. I swallowed hard, because I felt it too. His loneliness wasn't mine, sharp and alien like a void inside an ancient soul. Mine was a shield, built from years of hurt, carefully stacked bricks of fear and distrust. We were both alone, just not the same kind of alone. I caught the way his jaw tightened when I moved closer. Not anger. Uncertainty. Maybe he thought I was reaching for something impossible. Or maybe he just didn't know how to accept it. I left the tea on the table again. It cooled, untouched, like the hope I'd been nursing. He glanced at it briefly, then away. His silence said more than words ever could. I imagined crossing the space between us, breaking down the walls I'd spent so long building. But even the thought made my chest ache. Azrael shifted in his seat, fingers curling around the edge of the chair. I am bound by this contract, he said quietly. But I do not know what it means to love. I didn't answer. There was nothing to say. Love felt like a puzzle neither of us had the pieces for. Still, there was a flicker in his eyes. The way he studied me, not like before, with cold distance, but with something closer to searching. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was hope. Or maybe it was just the beginning of understanding. The night pressed on, and the silence settled again. But it didn't feel quite so heavy this time. Just two souls, lost and tethered in the same quiet room. Alone. Together. It's strange, isn't it? How loneliness can bind you to someone, even when all you want is to be free of it. And how sometimes that shared silence is the first step towards something real. I left the window cracked a little, hoping the air might feel less heavy. A small invitation, if Azrael noticed. He only pulled his cloak tighter around his shoulders. I set the book on the table, a quiet offering. The story I'd read again and again when I was alone. Instead, he glanced at it like it was a stranger's face, cold and unreadable. Why do you do this? He asked, voice flat. I blinked. That wasn't what I meant to say. To remind me of something, I said, but it sounded empty. He didn't ask what. We sat there, me reaching for something real, him retreating like the shadows creeping from the corners. Later, I brought tea again. Lukewarm now, bitter from waiting. I set the cup in front of him without a word. He looked at it like it was poison. Drink, I said quietly. His eyes flicked up, sharp, but his hand stayed still. I don't need comfort, he said. His tone was sharper than before. I didn't argue. It wasn't about the tea. It was the words unsaid. I wanted to tell him, I'm trying. But the silence swallowed me. He stood abruptly. The chair scraped the floor. I do not understand you, he said, and the words hit me like stones. I wanted to scream, to explain, that I wasn't trying to trap him, that I wasn't offering chains, only a hand. But instead, I just nodded. Because maybe that was the truth. We were speaking different languages. I watched him disappear down the hall, the space between us widening, and I was left alone again, the cold settling in my chest. Maybe love wasn't about grand gestures. Maybe it was this quiet disappointments, small wounds, the slow pull of distance. I thought of the open books, the untouched tea, the silence that had grown louder than any word, and I wondered if we could ever find a way through it, or if we were already lost. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't the pain, It's the not knowing. The missteps that push us farther apart even when all we want is to hold on. The room felt colder than before. The light slipping through the cracked window seemed dimmer, thinner, like it was giving up on us. Azrael sat opposite me, his hands clenched into fists on his knees. He wasn't looking at me. Not even once. I wanted to speak, but the words caught in my throat. What could I say that wouldn't make it worse? I swallowed the ache, tightening my chest, and reached out. Just a little. My hand hovered near his, but I pulled it back before it landed. He shifted, like he sensed it, but didn't want to respond. I don't understand, he said finally, voice low, almost bitter. Neither do I whispered, because it was true. He looked up then. His eyes, dark, ancient, unreadable, held something new. Fear. Or maybe it was guilt. Maybe both. You want something from me, he said, breaking the silence. But I cannot give it. I bit my lip, trying not to cry. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to beg. No, I said quietly. I don't want to be a burden. He shook his head. You are not a burden. But his words didn't reach the place inside where I lived, the place that kept retreating, closing off. I looked away, watching the steam rise from the cold cup I'd left untouched. The space between us stretched, a quiet canyon. I felt the stubborn spark inside me flicker, fragile but alive. I wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. Azrael's hands twitched, like he was wrestling with something beneath his skin. Why do you stay? His question was barely audible. Because it hurts less, I said without thinking. When you're near. His eyes caught mine, and for a moment, everything hung there, unfinished, fragile. Then the weight of it all pressed down again. The silence settled. We sat side by side, close yet galaxies apart. The breaking point was near, and I didn't know if either of us could survive it. There's a strange kind of pain in wanting someone who doesn't know how to want you back, and the fear of losing them, even when they seem so far away. We were both holding on by a thread, but the thread was fraying. The house felt empty in a way it never had before. Not just the rooms, but the air itself, like the walls were holding their breath. I didn't move much, just sat on the floor, back against the cold library shelves. Books, my old friends, forgotten around me. The quiet was sharp. Azrael's absence, even when he was there, pressed on my chest. I tried to reach out again, but the words tangled inside me, sharp and useless. I felt the heat rise suddenly, hot, unwelcome, and then the tears came. Not loud, not messy, just quiet, steady. No one to see, no one to catch me. The ache wasn't new. It had been growing, like a shadow stretching. I hated feeling this broken. I hated feeling like I was fading, like I was disappearing beneath the weight of all this silence. Azrael didn't come to check on me, didn't ask if I was okay. I didn't blame him. He was scared, too, of me, of what he couldn't understand, but it hurt. The tea I'd left untouched on the table sat cold, forgotten like everything else. I wanted to scream, to beg for something, anything, but my voice wouldn't work, so I let myself break. Because sometimes breaking is the only way to feel alive at all, and I was so tired of pretending I wasn't breaking. Azrael stood by the window, his back to me, silent and still like a statue. I thought maybe he didn't know what to do. Maybe he thought if he stayed quiet, I'd fix myself. But some things don't fix themselves, not when you're this tired of trying. I closed my eyes and let the tears fall, because this quiet breakdown was everything I hadn't been brave enough to say. And maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something new. I was alone in the silence, but maybe I wasn't the only one lost. And maybe, for now, that was enough. I didn't know what I was waiting for as I sat in the cold living room. I just couldn't make myself leave. The silence between us felt heavier than before, thick, frozen, like something solid you could touch. Azrael sat by the window, staring out but not really seeing. His shoulders were tight, like he was holding something fierce inside. I could feel it even though he said nothing. I wanted to ask if he was okay, but the words stuck in my throat. This wasn't the kind of pain you fix with questions. It was the kind that settles into your bones, slow, relentless. He finally turned toward me, his eyes dark and unreadable. You shouldn't have cried, he said, voice low, almost a whisper. Not angry, not cruel, distant. I blinked. Was that guilt? Regret? Something broke in the way he looked away. I didn't answer. What could I say? That it was because he never met me halfway? That I was scared he'd never really see me? He pulled his knees up, hugging them tight. I don't know if I'm built for this, he said after a long pause. The words slipped out like a confession, even though they weren't meant for me. Built for what? I asked quietly. To care. To love. His voice cracked just a little. I watched the fight inside him, ancient and raw, like a demon trying to learn how to bleed. He didn't expect me to say anything else, and I didn't. I just sat there, the space between us stretching and shrinking, like it was breathing. The house felt colder, the shadows longer. But there was something fragile in that moment, a crack in his armor I hadn't seen before. I wasn't sure what would come next, but maybe, just maybe, that crack was the first sign of something real. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something stir in my chest that wasn't just fear. I stayed silent, letting the quiet hold us both. The room stayed quiet, but not the comforting kind. It pressed in, thick and cold, like we were two strangers sharing the same space, pretending the years of silence between us didn't exist. Azrael didn't look at me, his gaze fixed on the flickering candle flame, but I knew he was fighting the urge to speak. I could feel it in the stiff way his hands clenched his knees, in the tight line of his jaw. I wanted to break the silence, to say the words I'd been holding close, words that might set me free or break me completely. But fear tangled them in my throat, and I swallowed them down. "You're quiet," I finally said. My voice came out softer than I meant it to. He didn't answer right away. When he did, it was sharp, but not angry. "You speak too much?" I blinked. That old half-joking dismissal that used to sting, but now it felt like a shield, something he was holding up, keeping me at a distance even as I wanted to come closer. I looked down at the tea untouched on the table, its steam fading into nothing. The way he always lets food sit untouched when the house is cold, and the silence louder than words. Everything waiting. For what? I didn't know. "I don't know how to say it," I confessed quietly, like admitting a sin. "How to tell you what I want without breaking." He glanced at me then. Just a flicker, a shadow of something vulnerable that he immediately swallowed back. "You think words can fix what's broken?" he asked. But it wasn't really a question. Maybe not. But silence hasn't fixed anything either. The truth crawled under my skin, the part of me that wanted to reach out, to bridge the space between us, but was terrified it would only push him further away. I studied the faint scars on his wrists, jagged lines like the history he didn't speak of. They made him human, fragile. But he wore his mask so tightly, I wasn't sure if he even remembered how to take it off. "Maybe we're both just scared," I whispered. He looked away again. I could see the war inside him, ancient duty warring with a new, terrifying feeling I recognized too well: hope. The candle flickered, casting long shadows that danced between us like ghosts of words unsaid. I wanted to say more, but the silence swallowed it whole. For now, that was all we could give each other. A quiet, fragile truce, waiting for a storm that might wash away the walls or drown us both. The rain started just after dark, soft at first, then like the sky tearing open. The windows rattled, the whole house feeling exposed. I sat near the cracked open book on the table, tracing the faded letters with a finger I wasn't sure belonged to me anymore. Azrael was in the corner, near the fire that barely warmed the room. His shoulders hunched like he was trying to fold himself smaller, disappear. But I could see the tension in his hands, restless, twitching, as if waiting for something that might never come. We didn't speak. Not really. Not words that mattered. Only the low thunder, the drip of rain, and the silence between us, thick enough to hold every unsaid thing. I thought about the first night he appeared, how the air shifted, how fear and disbelief tangled inside me. Now it was something else. Something raw and unfinished. I wanted to reach out, to say the words that would crack the walls we'd built. But I held back, afraid that speaking too soon would shatter what little fragile peace we'd found. His gaze flicked to me once, just a flash, before sliding away again, like we were both standing on the edge of a cliff, afraid to jump, terrified to fall. The teacup on the table was cold, untouched like so many other small things. The little ritual I'd started, hoping he might join. But tonight, even that hope felt brittle. "You don't have to say it tonight," I whispered, even though I knew the night wouldn't hold forever. His eyes finally met mine, dark and tired. "When then?" The question hung between us, not a demand, but a plea, a promise, a warning. I swallowed hard. "Soon." The storm outside raged on, wild and unforgiving, like the storm inside me, between fear and longing, between what was and what could be. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't want to run from it. We sat in that quiet, charged space, two souls caught in a moment before everything changes, waiting for the truth to break free. The kitchen was too quiet. No rain tapping at the window, just the low hum of the old fridge and the weight of the silence between us. I leaned against the counter, fingers tracing the chipped paint where years of careless hands had left their mark. He stood across from me, still, silent, just there. The way he looked at me was something I couldn't name yet. Not anger, not confusion, something softer. Fragile, maybe? I swallowed the knot in my throat and finally said the thing I'd been carrying around like a stone. Too heavy to hold, but too stubborn to drop. I don't want anything from you. The words felt bare, like stepping outside without a coat. Too honest, too real. It just hurts less when you're near. I didn't look up, didn't know if he'd heard or what he thought. The room held its breath with me. His eyes didn't shift. They stayed locked on mine, and for the first time, I didn't have to pretend the space between us was empty. No reply, no promise, just a silence that didn't push me away, and maybe, just maybe, that was enough. He didn't flinch. I waited for him to pull back, to disappear into that cold, careful silence of his, but he didn't. He just looked at me. Not like before, not like I was something he couldn't decipher. He looked at me like he saw it, what I'd said, what I meant, what it cost me. And then he stepped forward, not much, a single step, bare feet on the old hallway floor, quiet, but it felt loud somehow. He didn't touch me, just stood there, a breath away. The same hallway where I'd once walked past him without a word, where I'd clutched books to my chest and pretended I didn't care. Now I didn't pretend. And he didn't run. His voice came low, rougher than usual, like it scraped up from somewhere deep. I don't know how to be near you without wanting more. That was it. Nothing else. Just that. He looked at me like he regretted saying it, but not enough to take it back. And something in me shifted. Not all at once, just cracked a little more open. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. We stood there, in that stupid narrow hallway with chipped paint and half-dead light bulbs, close enough that I could feel the heat coming off his skin. He didn't touch me, but he stayed. And that was enough. For now. We didn't move. Not for a long time. He stayed close enough that I could hear the shift of his breath, feel the warmth of his skin reach for mine, but stop short. I didn't trust it yet, but I didn't want him to go. That was new. The air between us felt heavier than it used to. Not tense, just full, like it was holding its breath with me. And I could feel it starting again, that voice in my head that always said, "Don't say it, don't make it real, don't give anyone that much of you." But I was tired. Tired of holding it all in. Tired of pretending it didn't shape me. So I said the smallest part of it. He told me once that I was hard to love. Just that. The words didn't echo. They just landed. I didn't look at him. Couldn't. I stared at the floor like it might swallow me or tell me I'd imagined this whole thing. My voice had gone thin, like it didn't belong to the person who usually kept it locked up behind dry jokes and quiet exits. I waited for the silence to close in. That was how it always went. You say the hard thing, and the silence eats it, and then you wish you hadn't. But this one felt different. He didn't answer right away. I could hear him breathing. Steady, slower than mine. Then I felt it. His hand, not on me, but resting lightly on the doorframe beside me. Close. Not claiming space, just staying. Staying mattered more than I thought it would. I could feel the words pressing at the back of my teeth. The rest of it. The parts I never said. The night I left. The names I still carry. The way I flinch when I hear someone raise their voice, even if they're not yelling at me. But I didn't say all that. Not tonight. Just that one line. That one wound. And he didn't rush to fix it. He didn't say it wasn't true, or that I was beautiful, or strong, or brave. He just stayed. That was the thing about him. Even before I understood what I felt, he never interrupted the pain. He witnessed it. And somehow, in that stillness, the voice in my head went quiet. Not gone, but quiet. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. We stood there for what felt like forever, or maybe just a few seconds. It was hard to tell. But I remember the way the air changed, The way his presence felt less like something I had to survive and more like something I could lean into. The hallway didn't feel cold anymore, and neither did I. He didn't leave. He didn't speak either, just stayed beside me in the hallway where the silence had thickened like fog, heavy, close. I didn't need him to say anything. Not really. But something changed in the way he was standing. His stillness used to feel like stone, cold, unmoving, watching. Now it felt like holding. Not touching, just staying. I watched him from the corner of my eye, the way his brow was drawn tight, how he was breathing like it cost him something, how he looked at the floor, not me, like something in my words had cracked something in him. He finally spoke, quiet, low, like he was confessing it to himself more than to me. I didn't think you could hurt me. Just that. And the silence after was different this time. Not avoidance, not retreat, more like a wound being looked at for the first time. I didn't move. Neither did he. The hallway light flickered softly. The shadows made his face harder to read. But I could feel it, that slow unraveling. Something ancient inside him folding in on itself, confused and raw. He looked up at me, finally. There was no fire in his eyes, no gleam, no mask of control. Only something quiet, something wrecked. I'd spent weeks thinking he didn't feel, but maybe he just never let himself. And now that he had, it was undoing him. That was the moment I stopped seeing him as the demon I summoned, and started seeing him as the man I might have broken without meaning to. Or maybe the one I was starting to reach. Either way, the hallway held us both. Unsaid things and shattered edges. No magic. No declarations. Just a breath. A look. And something beginning. We didn't leave the hallway for a long time. Didn't touch, didn't talk. Just sat there, side by side, the way people do when the truth is too fresh to walk away from yet. Eventually, I stood. He followed, and we ended up in the kitchen. The light over the stove was the only one on. Yellow, soft. It felt like the safest kind of hush. I leaned against the counter. He stood a few feet away, staring at the kettle like he was trying to understand it. It wasn't cold between us, not exactly, just careful. When he finally looked at me, it wasn't with his usual sharpness. Not like a demon weighing a soul. Just a man. Tired, curious, maybe a little undone. I spoke first. I used to come here as a kid, this library. My mom would leave me in the back with a stack of books and forget the time. He didn't answer, but something in him eased. I didn't even know why I said it. It wasn't important, it was just true. So I said more. One time I hid in the supply closet. I wanted to see if anyone would come looking for me. A beat. No one did. The silence that followed wasn't empty this time. It was listening. He shifted a little closer, just slightly. I looked at him, waiting. He didn't look away. Then, quietly, like it cost him something, I don't remember my name. That was all. No explanation. No edges filled in. He just left it there, bare. And for some reason, that broke me a little. Not because I pitied him, but because I recognized the hollow inside that sentence. The ache of being unclaimed, unnamed, unmissed. I nodded, barely. I think mine stopped meaning anything after he left. A long pause. He reached out, not for me, just for the edge of the counter beside me. His hand rested there, inches from mine. Stillness, breathing. A storm whispering at the windows. Then his voice again, low and rough. They said I was made to be desired. That was the point of me, the shape of me. I never thought to ask what I wanted. Something in my throat tightened. I looked down at our hands, at the space between them. I used to think I wanted to be loved, I said softly, but I think I just didn't want to be alone. We didn't touch. We didn't need to. Something else passed between us. A kind of recognition. Grief that mirrored. Hope that mirrored too. The moment stretched. Not dramatic, not magic, but something had shifted. He looked at me like he saw the girl in the supply closet, and I saw him, not as the demon I'd summoned, but the boy who forgot his name because no one ever spoke it with love. That night, we didn't finish our stories, but we started telling them. And maybe that was enough. We stayed there, sitting with them. His hand still rested on the edge of the counter. Mine now closer than before. The space between us had changed. It wasn't filled with silence anymore. It was filled with possibility. That used to scare me. It still did, if I was honest. But there was something else in me tonight. A kind of softness I hadn't felt in a long time. A quiet ache to reach for something instead of always pulling away. I glanced at him. He wasn't looking at me, not exactly. Just at the place where our hands nearly touched. like he was waiting for something he wasn't sure he was allowed to want. So I moved first. It wasn't dramatic, just my fingers shifting, slow, until the back of my hand brushed against his. Warm, solid, real. He stilled, not in the way that meant danger, in the way that meant surprise. Like I just said his name for the first time. I almost pulled away. It would have been easier, but I didn't. Instead, I let my hand stay there, not gripping, not asking, just there, offering. His fingers twitched. Then, so carefully it made my chest ache, he turned his hand and laced his fingers through mine. Not tightly. Like he expected me to disappear, like he was still learning how not to break things. God. That stupid, gentle gesture almost undid me. I swallowed hard. He looked at me then. Not with hunger, not with curiosity, just with something I didn't have words for yet, something reverent. We stood like that, hands barely joined, breaths quiet and uncertain. I don't know what I'm doing, I whispered, my voice not much louder than the rain. He didn't answer, just gave the slightest squeeze. And that was somehow everything. That night, we didn't kiss, didn't say anything more. But I went to bed with his touch still curled around my fingers, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to keep my heart braced for impact. I let it rest, just a little, right there in the space his hand had left behind. We didn't let go of each other's hands until the tea kettle screamed. Even then, it took a second, like neither of us wanted to be the first to pull away. I went upstairs after that, not because I wanted to, just I didn't know what else to do. The hallway felt colder than it should have. Old wood, quiet carpet, that smell of books and dust that always clung to me. I stood outside my door for a while, not moving, just holding my fingers like they still remembered his. He came up a few minutes later. Slow steps, no magic this time, just footsteps. He paused when he saw me, didn't speak, didn't need to. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed but loose, not hiding, just bracing. He stood across from me, close but not close enough to touch. The silence stretched, long and uncomfortable, but not the bad kind, the kind where something matters and neither of you wants to be the first to say it wrong. You're afraid quietly. It wasn't a question. I nodded. Didn't trust my voice yet. So am I, he added. I looked up at him then. Even demons can look scared, I guess. His eyes didn't glow like they used to. Just steady, wounded, real. I wanted to say something comforting, something to make it easier, but all I could think was, we've both lost things. And now we're standing here, hoping we don't lose each other. So I said the only thing that felt true. I don't know how to do this without breaking. He didn't answer, just stepped forward, slowly, carefully, and rested his forehead against mine. Like that was his answer, like we didn't need to know how, we just had to choose to try. I breathed him in, that strange, not quite earth scent that clung to his skin, smoke and stars and something older than time. And I let myself stay there. Just for a minute. It wasn't a promise. Not exactly, but it felt like one. A quiet pact made in the dark. We'll risk it, even if it hurts, even if it doesn't last, even if we break, because maybe, just maybe, there's something worth finding in the wreckage. Something that looks like love. I didn't go inside right away. I just stood in the doorway, holding on to the quiet. Azrael hadn't moved either. Still near. Still watching me like I might disappear if he blinked. Maybe I was afraid I would. He didn't reach for me again, didn't try to pull me into anything I wasn't ready for. That meant more than I could say. And somehow that made it harder. My fingers grazed the doorframe. It felt solid. More than I did. I looked him, really looked. He wasn't trying to be unreadable. Not anymore. Just standing there like he didn't know what came next either. We were both waiting. Not for the right words, just for the fear to settle long enough to speak past it. It didn't, really, but I spoke anyway. I'll try, that was all I said. Nothing dressed up, no promises, no conditions, just that. It felt small coming out, but it landed like a stone dropped in water. Everything around it went still. He didn't smile, didn't say anything in return, just nodded once, slowly, like he heard it for what it was, like it meant something. A minute passed, maybe two. Then he turned away, no magic, no drama, just footsteps fading down the hall. I stepped into my room and closed the door behind me. Leaning back against it, I let myself breathe. Not deeply, not easily, but enough. I didn't feel brave, I didn't feel sure, but I hadn't turned away, and neither had he, and for now, that was enough. That was everything. The house was quiet again, but different now. Not empty. Just quiet in the way dusk is, the kind of silence that holds its breath. I sat at the little table by the kitchen window, the one with the chipped edge, the single candle stub we kept forgetting to replace. My mug was cold in my hands. I hadn't made tea. I just needed something to hold. I didn't hear him come in, but I felt it, that flicker of awareness, like a shift in temperature. He didn't speak, just hovered near the cabinets, staring at them like they were a puzzle. The air between us had been thick since that night. Not with tension anymore, with something else. Possibility, maybe. He opened the wrong cupboard twice, didn't ask for help. I didn't offer. I watched his fingers, long, careful, inhuman, wrap awkwardly around the ceramic handle of the kettle. It looked small in his hands. There was something strangely tender about how gently he turned the tap, like water could break. He set it on the stove with too much force. Winced at the clatter. Said nothing. Still didn't look at me. He didn't know how long to let it boil. Didn't realize it didn't need to. Let it scream before moving. His shoulders tensed at the whistle, like it accused him. He poured it anyway, then hovered again, looking between the boxes of tea like they were labeled in a language he didn't read. He chose wrong, mint and black tea in the same mug. Too much. No sugar. No honey. He didn't ask how I liked it. Just set it in front of me, carefully. Steam rose between us, bitter, a little burnt. I blinked. He stood there, not sitting, waiting, not for praise, not even for thanks. Just waiting. Like if I didn't take a sip, something in him would crumple. So I did. It was awful and perfect. Warm, real. He watched me drink it like it was the most important thing I'd ever done. I didn't smile, but I didn't look away. He sat across from me, slowly, not his usual stillness. He fidgeted, adjusted his hands, like he wasn't sure where to put them. I let the silence stretch. Let it be enough. Then softly, barely audible over the hum of the kettle cooling, he said, I didn't want you to feel alone this morning. And that was it. No ceremony, no apology, just that. He didn't touch me, but I felt the shape of the care in the air between us. My throat was tight. I wasn't sure why. I reached for the mug again. It had cooled too fast. Still drank it. I didn't say thank you. Not with words. I just sat there with him. Let him be near. Let him try. And for once, that was enough. The tea had gone cold, but I kept the mug in my hands anyway. His was untouched. Steam no longer curled between us. Just quiet. He didn't leave the table. Didn't disappear into shadows like before. Didn't vanish mid-moment like it cost him nothing to go. He stayed. That's what felt new. Not the tea. Not the awkwardness. Not even the gesture. The staying. He leaned back in the chair like he didn't know what to do with stillness, but was trying to understand it anyway. One hand on the table, the other hanging loosely off the armrest, claws dulled against wood. No tension in his shoulders now, or less of it, a small shift. But I noticed. I always noticed him. The way his body used to be coiled, like he was always ready to leave or fight or disappear. Now he just sat in the room. With me. I didn't fill the space with talking. I didn't know what to say. And for the first time, I didn't feel the pressure to say anything. He didn't look at me, not directly. Just once, briefly, as if to check I was still there. Then his eyes flicked back to the table. But softer now. Not distant. Present. We just breathed. That was it. I think I'd forgotten what it felt like to be quiet with someone and not feel lonely. The candle on the table gave one last stubborn flicker before guttering out. I didn't move to relight it. Azrael didn't seem to mind the dark. A minute passed, or 10. I don't know. But I started to feel something warm under my ribs. Not joy. Not yet, but ease. Like my body had stopped bracing. I glanced at him. He hadn't moved. His eyes were half closed, not asleep, just resting. Like the effort to exist gently around me was finally less foreign. There were so many things I could have said. How the tea was awful, but it meant something. How I felt safer now than I had in months. How this silence felt more intimate than anything else he'd given me. But I didn't. Instead, I shifted slightly. My knee bumped his under the table. He didn't flinch, didn't pull away, just the barest pause. Then he let it stay. And something in me did too. I caught it before I thought too hard, the way Azrael's eyes lingered. Not just looking, but holding, like he was trying to memorize the shape of me, the way light hit my face. No words, no explanations, just quiet. It was different this time, softer, less guarded, like the ice around him had cracked just a hair, enough to let something warmer peek through. He sat across from me, that usual distance shrinking without a word. His hands folded on his lap, still so precise, but his shoulders were looser. Less sharp angles, more weight settling down. I didn't move, didn't say anything. I just let my eyes meet his. I waited to see if the usual flicker of impatience or detachment would flash, but it didn't. Instead, there was something fragile in his gaze, like he was scared to pull away. And maybe I was too. There was a faint pulse in my chest, nervous, hopeful, unsure. The space between us felt smaller, warmer, like maybe I could reach out without breaking. I remembered that night, the storm when I finally told him how much it hurt just to be near. And here we were. No big declarations, no promises, just eyes catching eyes. Azrael's glance wasn't perfect. It was clumsy, hesitant, like everything else with him, but it was real, and it meant something. I looked down first, suddenly aware my breath had caught. "Don't look away," he said, low. His voice cracked the silence like a secret shared too quietly. I didn't answer. I just let the moment sit between us like a fragile thread. And maybe that thread was enough for now. He stirred, eyes fluttering open, still holding that half smile like a secret. "You smiled," I said softly. He didn't answer. He just looked at me. No walls, no distance. Something like warmth. And that was enough. The moment wasn't loud. It never is. We sat side by side on the threadbare couch, the same one where I'd caught him smiling in his sleep. My fingers brushed his hand, accidental at first, the kind of contact that usually makes me pull away. But this time I stayed. His skin was warm, warmer than I expected. He didn't pull back. Instead, his hand shifted, fingers catching mine, just for a second longer than necessary. Not enough to speak, but enough to say something. I didn't look at him. I stared at the space where our hands met, my heart skipping in a way I barely understood. He breathed out, slow and steady, and moved his hand slightly, tracing my knuckles with a careful, clumsy grace, like he was learning the shape of me. It was nothing like the cold demon I'd met. That small, this simple touch held more than words ever could. A quiet apology, a promise, maybe. A reaching out through a barrier neither of us fully understood yet. I felt my walls crumble again, but softer this time. He shifted closer, taking the seat next to me without a word, not pressing, just being there. The library around us didn't change, but everything did. The faint scent of old paper mixed with something warmer, something new. I wanted to speak, but the silence felt safer. Instead, I let my fingers linger on his, and in that slow, careful touch, I found something I'd stopped believing in, a kind of belonging. Not perfect, not whole, but real. Azrael's hand tightened just a little, and that was enough for now. I caught myself wanting to be near him. Not the perfect, easy kind of want, but the messy kind that doesn't ask for permission. Like when he hesitated before reaching for the tea, knocking the cup slightly off center, his hands unsure but determined. That moment stuck with me. It wasn't about the tea, it was about the trying. I used to believe love meant something flawless, something safe. Now, watching him, clumsy, silent, with those dark eyes that held storms and something softer, I realized I didn't need perfect. I just needed this. His rough edges, the scars I couldn't see but felt, the way he guarded himself like a fortress. These weren't barriers anymore. They were pieces of him. And I was willing to touch those pieces, even if it meant getting cut. I thought about the contract, a year of love for my deepest desire. Funny how the desire had shifted. At first it was all about getting something, hope, a life fixed, a wish granted. Now it was about him, not some ideal, not some flawless dream, but him, imperfect, distant, becoming real. I wasn't sure what this meant exactly, if it was love or something like it, but it was something, and it scared me in the best way. I wanted to reach out and close the distance, but I stayed quiet instead, letting the feeling settle, letting myself feel it without naming it. Because sometimes the quiet moments teach you more than the loud ones ever could. I looked at his hand beside mine, still there, still warm. And for the first time in a long time, I thought maybe I was ready to want. Messy, imperfect, uncertain, but real. And that was enough. He moved differently now. Not with the heavy certainty of a conqueror, but the carefulness of someone testing fragile ground. Yesterday, I found a blanket folded neatly on the back of the worn chair. Not something he'd done before. Not because I'd asked, because he noticed. Because he saw me shiver without saying a word. I caught him watching me once, not cold, not curious, quiet, like he was figuring out what care looked like. That evening, when I sank into the couch, tired and stiff, he didn't retreat. He sat beside me. No words, just presence. His shoulder grazed mine, light, unforced, a silent offering. Later, he poured the tea just the way I liked it, hot with a slice of lemon. The bitter taste wasn't perfect, but the thought was. I didn't say anything. I just drank. Sometimes love feels like this. Not loud declarations or grand gestures, but small things remembered. The way his fingers lingered a moment too long when handing me a book. The way he kept a candle lit near my bedside, even when I was asleep. Azrael was learning a language without words. And I was learning to understand it. Because maybe love wasn't about being flawless. Maybe it was about showing up, messy, quiet, stubborn, and I could feel the space between us shift, slowly and possibly, like ice melting under the faintest touch. I didn't know where this was going, didn't even want to name it yet, but I knew one thing. I wasn't afraid to stay here. Not anymore. The room felt different tonight, not empty, not tense, just safe. Azrael sat beside me on the threadbare couch, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from him, but far enough that it didn't demand anything. His hand brushed against mine, not quite a touch, not quite a withdrawal. I didn't pull away. There was no need to say anything. No promises, no plans, just the steady sound of his breathing. And mine, trying to slow down. I watched his eyes flicker in the candlelight, softer than before. No shadows hiding anger or distance. Just him and me. The silence stretched, comfortable, unbroken. For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to fill it. He shifted, and a blanket slipped from his lap onto mine. No words, no explanation. I wrapped it around myself, feeling the threadbare fabric and the weight of his care. A long breath escaped me. Azrael's gaze caught mine. No question, no demand, just a shared moment, quiet, steady. He nodded once, almost imperceptibly, and in that small gesture, I heard everything he wouldn't say. I rested my head lightly against his shoulder, not because I needed to, because I wanted to, because maybe this quiet, fragile closeness was enough. For now. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight, here, with him, it felt like home, and I was letting myself stay. I sat by the window, the city noise softened to a distant hum. The mug in my hands was empty, but I held it anyway. I used to think love was a cage. A trap with iron bars made from fear and old scars, like I was just waiting to be caught, to be hurt again. But now it's different. It feels more like a room with soft walls, a quiet space where I don't have to be sharp or small, where the weight in my chest eases just enough to breathe. Azrael doesn't fill that space with noise or fire. He's just there. A steady presence that doesn't demand, doesn't pull. And that's new. I didn't realize how much I needed that until now. I caught myself watching him sleep last night, his hand barely brushing mine before he moved it away like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing to me. He's learning to be gentle. And maybe I'm learning to be still. I don't have answers yet. Not about us. Not about what comes next. But for the first time in a long time, I'm not afraid. I whispered to no one. Maybe love isn't a cage. Maybe it's the quiet after the storm. And I believed it. He didn't say much, but I caught the way his fingers trembled when he reached for the teacup, a flicker of hesitation that hadn't been there before. Azrael, the demon who once moved like a shadow, sharp and cold. Now, he stumbled over softness, like it was unfamiliar ground. I watched him in the kitchen, silent except for the faint clink of porcelain, his gaze fixed on something I couldn't see. "Why do you hesitate?" I asked once. He didn't answer at first. Then, quietly, "Because it's different." Different. It wasn't a word he would have used before he understood what trembling meant, what wanting to be gentle felt like. He was unraveling, thread by thread, caught between centuries of detachment and something raw and fragile. There was fear in it. Not the firestorm kind, but the quiet kind that whispers, "What if this breaks me?" But there was also hope. A hesitant light, like dawn breaking through a long night. I saw it in the way he lingered near me. Not as a master with a prize, but as someone afraid to lose what he hadn't known he could have. He's becoming more human. Not because he chooses to, but because he's learning to feel beyond the contract. And I realized, maybe the real magic isn't in wishes or deals. It's in the mess of trying, failing, and still reaching for something softer. He didn't say it out loud, but I heard it in his eyes. I don't want to be just a demon anymore. And neither did I. I caught myself staring at the calendar again. That thin line, 1 year, like a knife hovering just out of sight. Azrael was here, right now, but what happens when the clock runs out? It wasn't just a shadow in my mind. It was a weight in the quiet moments, the way my hands clenched when he wasn't looking. He's changed. I know that. I see it in the way he watches me, softening, afraid, hopeful. But the fear beneath his calm is like a slow drip of cold water, reminding us both that this contract isn't forever. I wanted to ask him once, does it scare you? He looked at me then and said, I don't know what I am without you. That unsettled me more than anything. Because what if the you I'm holding on to is just a promise that will vanish? It's not just the contract. It's every scar I carry, every silent lesson I've learned about love's fragility. And Azrael, he's learning to feel too. But feeling means risking loss. The hardest part isn't that we started this way. It's the not knowing how it ends. Still, in the spaces between the doubt, I find myself wanting to stay. Because maybe love isn't about forever. Maybe it's about this, the messy, uncertain now. Even if it breaks us, it's the only thing that feels alive. And maybe that's enough. The kitchen was quiet except for the faint clink of a spoon against the chipped mug Azrael had picked out himself. I sat across from him, watching the steam curl between us like a fragile thread. I didn't say anything, didn't need to. He looked up, eyes steady but soft. It's not easy, he said. Not for me. His voice was low, like a secret slipping through the cracks. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I'm scared too, I admitted, because that felt like the only honest thing left to say. The year ticking down wasn't a countdown anymore. It was a choice. Not just his, mine too. I remembered the nights I thought love was a trap, a prison of promises I couldn't keep. But here, in this quiet space between words and small glances, love was messy and real. And maybe that was enough to fight for. I don't want to give up, I whispered. Azrael's eyes searched mine, like he was hoping I meant it, hoping we could mean it together. Because love, I realized, wasn't some magical fix or a perfect ending. It was choosing each other, even with the fear, even with the doubt, even knowing it might break us. I reached out, fingertips brushing his hand. No grand gesture, just a simple touch. It said everything words couldn't. He didn't pull away. And for the first time, I wasn't waiting for the end. I was here, with him. Choosing this. The morning settled into a slow rhythm. Azrael would make the tea. Always the same way. Too strong, a little bitter, but somehow exactly what I needed. I learned to wait for the clink of the spoon against the chipped mug before sitting down. He never asked if I wanted it. He just made it. There was a quiet comfort in that. Sometimes we'd read aloud, his voice rough but steady, mine shaky but growing sure. The words between us weren't just stories anymore. They were a language only we understood. Once, as he passed me a page, his fingers brushed mine, a simple touch, but enough to make my heart trip over itself. I caught myself smiling at nothing in particular. The small moments became our rituals. Quiet check-ins with a glance, sharing a book left open on the table, a careful fold of the tea bag string. They felt like spells, no grand magic, just the steady work of showing up. I thought back to the burnt tea from weeks ago. Azrael's clumsy attempt at care hadn't been perfect, but it had been real, and so were these mornings. Love didn't have to roar. Sometimes it whispered in the slow routine of ordinary days, and maybe that was enough to hold on to. Azrael glanced up as I reached for my mug. I'm here, he said. No promises, no grand declarations, just the quiet truth that had started to mean everything. I nodded, feeling it settle inside me, a soft, steady kind of hope. Not a fix, not a guarantee, but a choice. Every single day. I was folding laundry when I realized something strange. I wasn't rushing. I'd never thought about laundry as a place for quiet peace. But here I was, noticing the way Azrael's shirt smelled faintly of the herbs he burned that first night. Earthy, a little smoky. It hit me then. Love wasn't the firestorms I'd imagined. It was this. The small, ordinary moments stitched together like thread. The way Azrael left his boots by the door, always lined up neat now. How I found a folded note on my pillow, just 2 words. Good morning. No magic, no grand speeches, just us. I caught him once, watching me from the kitchen doorway. His eyes held something softer than before, less like a demon, more like someone trying to belong. I said nothing. He didn't have to explain, because I was starting to understand. Love wasn't about fixing or saving, it was about being seen in all the messy, imperfect ways. Like when I burned the toast and he laughed, not with mockery, but something close to warmth. I wanted to tell him that I was afraid sometimes, still afraid, but mostly I wanted him to know I was here, choosing him every day. "Do you think this can last?" I asked one night, voice barely above a whisper. He looked at me, tired and uncertain. "It already is." That was all he said. And maybe that was enough, because love didn't have to be a grand, impossible thing. Sometimes it was just two people sitting in silence, sharing a broken mug of tea, and somehow that felt like the most magic I'd ever known. I woke before the kettle did, before the soft pop of the old pipes, before him. The house was still. Not in that cold way it used to be, when silence felt like proof I was alone. This was different. This was a quiet that held us. I sat at the kitchen table, the chip one with the warped leg. Azrael had tried to fix it once. Too much magic. It glowed for 3 days and then slumped sideways, like it knew better. I never asked him to fix it again. I just slipped a folded napkin under the leg, and now it doesn't wobble anymore. He came in barefoot. No sound, but I felt it, like the air shifted to fit him. Like the morning bowed a little when he walked in. He didn't say anything, just poured the water. 2 mugs, same way he always does now. "I use the honey you like," he said quietly. I looked at him. No makeup, no shields, just him. "Thank you," I whispered, "not for the honey. Not really." We drank in silence, steam curling between us. His fingers brushed mine when he passed the mug. He didn't pull away. The clock on the wall was broken, had been since October. Neither of us had fixed it. Maybe we didn't want to know how close we were. Maybe we did. I used to think time was a curse, that it ran out, that it left you. But sitting here with him, with tea, with a napkin holding up the table, I didn't feel like something was ending, just shifting. "I thought I'd be afraid today," I said. Azrael looked up. His eyes, there's a softness there now, still shadowed, still old, but warmer. "Are you?" I shook my head. "I'm not afraid of losing it," I said. "My life before you, that was the part I survived. This," I gestured to the mug, the window, the light catching on his shoulder. "This I lived." He didn't smile, not with his mouth, but I felt it in the space between us. In the breath he held. "Do you regret it?" he asked. His voice was raw around the edges, like maybe it mattered too much. "No," I said. Too quickly, maybe. But it was the truth, even if it ended. Even if this was all we got. No part of me wanted to undo it. I remembered the first day, the summoning, the salt on the library floor, how I'd whispered, "I don't want to be alone anymore." I didn't even mean it like a wish. More like a surrender. And now here we were. Same girl, same heart. Just a little fuller, a little less afraid. Azrael reached across the table, his hand wrapped around mine, palm to palm, warm, solid, like he belonged here, like we both did. "You were never alone," he said, quiet, steady, not trying to fix anything, just saying it. I looked at our hands, the faint shimmer of his skin, the smallest tremble in mine. There were no promises, no grand speeches, no final kiss, just this, 2 mugs, a crooked table, a folded napkin, and his hand holding mine. The contract was almost over, but I wasn't counting. Not anymore, because for the first time, I wasn't waiting to be left. I was just here, fully, with him. And whatever came next, I'd meet it open-eyed. He didn't leave. That's the thing. No burst of fire, no smoke curling into the ceiling, no dramatic exit. He just stayed. The morning stretched long and slow, like it didn't want to be over either. I washed our mugs, he dried them. The towel was too small for his hands. He didn't complain. The contract should have ended at sunrise. That's how he described it months ago, his voice distant, practiced. At the year's end, at first light, the deal concludes. And yet, the light came, and he was still here. No glowing sigils, no vanishing, just him. Still in his socks with the threadbare heel, still watching me like I was the thing holding him together. I waited, kept expecting some kind of shift, a crack in the air, a sound, a decision. But maybe it had already happened, quietly, like most of the important things between us. We ended up in the library, where it began, the same dust on the shelves, the same old rug with the corner that curls. He stood in the circle, the one I'd drawn in chalk in desperation. Only now the lines were faint, broken in places, just like me back then. I didn't ask him anything. Didn't need to. The question was in the silence. The answer was in his staying. "You're free," I said. It came out softer than I meant. Maybe not even for him, maybe for me. His eyes met mine, old eyes, older than time maybe, but I'd learned them. I could read the quiet in them now. "I know," he said. That was all. 3 syllables. But it landed like a vow. There was a long pause. He looked at the circle again. Then he stepped out of it. No flare, no sparks. Just one foot, then the other. Toward me. Toward the life we'd built in between burned tea and shared silence. A life that hadn't asked for magic, just presence. I thought he'd say something more. He didn't. He just came close enough that I could feel the heat of him, that strange, steady warmth he always carried like an afterthought. And then he pressed something into my hand. His ring. Black metal, warm from his skin. I looked up. Waited. He shook his head once. Soft. "No promises," he said. "Just this." I closed my fingers around it, felt the weight, felt him, and I nodded. Later I would leave it by the sink, next to my own chipped mug. Not because I didn't want it, but because I didn't need to hold on to it to believe he was staying. Somewhere in the house, the kettle clicked. He turned toward the sound, and I followed him. No contract, no binding words, just 2 people. And a kitchen. And a morning that didn't end. The house felt different, not bigger, not smaller, just present. Like it had exhaled. Like I had. I woke before him. The curtains were half open, letting light slant across the floor, soft, yellow, with dust drifting through it like it had nowhere else to go. Azrael lay on his side, arm folded beneath his head, his back rising and falling, slow and steady. It used to scare me, that stillness. How quiet he could be. How he seemed like he might vanish if I blinked. Now it just felt normal. Not safe, exactly, but real. I sat on the edge of the bed for a while, letting the morning settle into my bones, listened for the kettle. It didn't start itself this time. No magic, just me, getting up, flicking the switch. It's strange what you end up missing. For so long, I thought I wanted to be rescued or fixed. But what I really wanted was this, the mundane, the shared. A second mug on the counter. A burned tongue. A quiet body next to mine at dawn. When I looked at the chalk circle in the library that morning, I didn't feel fear anymore. Just memory. The kind that aches a little, even when it's good. The books were still there, one of them still open on the floor where I dropped it yesterday. I didn't rush to close it. Some stories don't need endings right away. I walked past the table where we used to sit, me with my tea, him with his unread book. He always held it upside down at first, didn't know which way words worked, didn't ask, just watched me until he figured it out. Quietly. The teacups I pulled from the shelf didn't match. They never had. One chipped at the lip, one stained faintly inside, no matter how I scrubbed. I used to hate that. Now I kind of liked it. Proof that they'd been held. When he came into the kitchen, I didn't turn around right away. I heard his footsteps, soft for someone with that much presence. He stopped in the doorway, waiting, not asking anything. Just here. That was new. "Tea," I said, like I always did. But this time I didn't ask if he wanted some. I knew. He stepped forward and took the mug from my hand. Not with ceremony, not with meaning stitched into every breath, just because that's what we do now. We drank at the kitchen table, same spot where I'd once sat across from him and thought, this is temporary. Now I didn't count the days, didn't wonder if it was real. Didn't ask what I had to do to make it last. "I used to think I wasn't built for this," I said, not even sure why I was speaking. The words just came. Simple, ugly, honest, his eyes lifted to mine, calm and steady. And now? I looked down at our mugs. They were side by side, close but not touching. "I don't know," I said, "but I don't think it matters." He didn't reply. He didn't need to. His hand reached over, slow and careful, and rested on the table between us. Palm up, open. No demand, no bargain. Just there. I placed mine in it. Our fingers didn't tangle, they just rested, warm skin on warm skin, like we had all the time in the world. The first time I summoned him, I was cold. Not physically, just inside. The kind of cold that feels permanent, like nothing will ever warm through again. Now, the kettle whistled, and I didn't flinch. I poured the water into both mugs without thinking. His the darker one, mine chipped on the side. We never swapped. Some things just settled that way. Azrael was sitting on the floor in the library again, legs folded beneath him, back against the wall, the same spot where he first appeared, where I had whispered a wish without realizing it was one, where the contract began and ended, and something else began after. He looked up when I came in, eyes soft, expression open. That used to scare me too, being seen like that. Now it just made me feel here, real, wanted. I still don't know what my deepest desire was, I said, setting the mug beside him, close enough that he'd feel the warmth. He didn't answer right away. Didn't need to. I sat next to him, not touching, just near. There was a time when I'd sit like this and brace for silence, because silence used to mean distance. Now it didn't. Now it just meant being. He picked up his mug, cradled it like he was still figuring it out. His fingers were too long for the handle. Still. After all this time, he never complained, just held it gently, carefully, like he was afraid of breaking it. I think that's how he held me too. The clock ticked softly. Rain tapped the window. I didn't check the time. Time had stopped mattering the moment the contract burned away. The moment he stayed, he whispered my name. Not like a spell, not like a plea, just like he wanted to say it. Elara, soft, simple. It felt like the first time all over again, but not cold now, just warm. Like a hand resting on my back, like a blanket pulled over tired limbs, like home. I looked at him, really looked. There were still pieces of him I didn't understand, still shadows in the corners, but love didn't mean understanding everything. It just meant staying anyway. Elara, he said again, almost like a question this time, like he was asking if I was still here, if I was still choosing this, choosing him. So I answered the only way that mattered. I reached over, touched his hand, and whispered back Azrael. That was it. That was enough. 2 mugs, 2 names, 1 breath held between them. No promise, no magic, no forever, just now, and now was quiet and warm and full. The library was still messy, books stacked in strange places, some open, some closed. I didn't feel the need to fix them. We weren't a tidy story, but we were still here, and for now, that was everything.